Hello YouTube, I hope you're all doing great. You're obviously here because of this guy. In this video I will cover a few points regarding the VALOI Easy35, but if you are here because you need to decide between a flatbed scanning method or a camera scanning method or perhaps going to your local lab, then I am sorry to disappoint you that despite me blabbering here on YouTube, I am utterly unqualified to speak about the flatbed scanners and the lab scans because I have yet to try them. I have only ever developed my own film and scanned my own stuff here at home. So I guess that is also a bit of a testimony to how easy it is to do. That being said, I suggest you stick around just so you can make a more qualified decision later on if you're still on the fence regarding camera scanning. So I've been using this for almost a year now and I've been very pleased with the results. And in this video, I will demonstrate how to set up the device and how to use it. And finally, we will do some pixel peeping at the end and yeah, leave it for you to decide if this is the right choice. So what is the VALOI Easy35? Well, simply put, it is a box that lights up and you run your film through it, then you take some pictures, and that is basically it. It's that simple, it's super fast, but you shouldn't rush it either. All right, let's set up. Step one, find your digital camera and the sharpest lens you got, preferably a macro lens, but anything between 55 and 105 millimeters should be fine for full frame, 40 to 70 on crop sensor, and 35 to 60 on a micro four thirds. Using a prime lens will also make it easier, otherwise set your zoom lens to the maximum to keep it more consistent. I'm using the Canon RF 100mm 2.8 macro lens, and to determine the distance, you can either brute force your way through all the tubes, but a more sophisticated solution is to draw a 24 by 36 millimeter on a piece of paper and measure the amount of tubes you will need to keep the square in frame. Or you can use this great manual which comes with the product, and they already got that done for you. I also recommend reading the manual because it's pretty good. And they even have some really nice videos online. The filter thread is 62 millimeters. I also use the adapter ring that comes with the product, making the 67 millimeter to a 62 millimeter thread. There's also adapter rings for other sizes, and I'll list them here. And that's basically the whole setup. And the best part is that unless you change the lens or the sensor size, like switching cameras, you won't have to do this step again. Just keep them connected for the next time. There's also this additional piece. This is the duster module, which goes on the entry side on the VALOI Easy35, which is an optional piece you have to buy separately. And it does help preventing excessive dust or hairs getting to your film scanning process. You want to minimize as much of that as happening. And I have a dog, so I appreciate having this to fill out some of the dog hair. With our VALOI Easy35 attached to our camera, we now turn on the light and set the color temperature. The manual recommends the coolest setting for color negative, somewhere in the middle for black and white, and the warmest setting for the color positive. I keep the light at full power during scans, and you can charge it using a USB-C cable and your phone charger. Now, let's put on some gloves and scan some film. But before we do so, let's talk about camera settings. Once again, the manual have everything you need to know, so you can always reference that instead of finding this video. But it is fairly simple. Turn on your camera, set it to aperture priority. I like to use f8 on my lens, but you can also use 5.6 and maybe even 11. I keep my ISO as low as possible. On this camera, it's 100. And since we're in aperture priority, we don't have to worry about shutter speed. I'm shooting this in uncompressed RAW, and I will correct the white balance later on in post. The last setting is to push the exposure slightly to the right. I set my exposure to be 2/3 overexposed. This overexposure makes it so the camera shoots the darkest parts a bit brighter. The last bit of advice is to get yourself a remote trigger or use a delayed shutter, for example, 2 seconds delay. This will increase the time to do this scanning, but it will also improve the results. I always use an external trigger, which is also very handy to have for other purposes like portrait shoots or time lapses. So it's a great investment anyway, and you get some really cheap ones. Now it's time to slide the film in. but which way should we face the film? Well, according to VALOI, it's best to face the emulsion side away from the lens, which is the opposite of what you usually see recommended on the internet. VALOI state they have done some extensive tests, but I have only recently learned this while reading up on this video, and the results I've gotten was pretty good anyway, so it doesn't matter that much, but from now on I'm gonna do what they recommend and have the emulsion side face away from the lens. You can identify the emulsion side by shining light on the film, and the matte side is the emulsion side. It is still gonna reflect light, but there's one side that's a bit more reflective than the other, and one that is less reflective. That is the matte side, that's the emulsion side, which you'll face away from the lens if you're using this method here. All right, that's all the prepping we need to do, and we can finally start the scanning process. So grab your film, slide it in, adjust focus, and line up the borders. If this is your first time, then make sure you've got enough border surrounding the frame. I don't have a ton of room left on my scans, but I am also trying to maximize the functional resolution of my camera, since the Canon R6 is a 20 megapixel camera, which may be a bit on the low side. Perhaps one of the most important parts is setting the focus. And I keep an extra eye on the focus for the first couple of frames, because sometimes I feel like there's a bit of drift if there's some bend in the film. I find a place with high contrast, and I use the magnifying function to set the focus on the grain on the film. All right, so with our first frame loaded in, it's time to start the scanning process. So let's put on some music and see how fast I can scan 36 frames. Well, you may also notice I've placed the Ninja here, which is not needed. I just want to record the screen so you can follow along. Right, let's get started. Frame number 1. And we're done in less than 3 minutes. Next step is to make these digital negatives into positives. And I'll be using Lightroom with the plugin called Negative Lab Pro. There are other options available, but that will be for another day. I will even save my workflow for another video and instead just focus on the quality of the scan we just did. And we're going to look into sharpness and color, because I think that is the most important parts of it. And yeah, let's get to it. All right, so here we are inside of Lightroom. We have our images converted into our positives using NLP Negative Lab Pro. And we're just going to take a look at sharpness. And when I say sharpness right now, you have to keep in mind that there's a first level of sharpness coming from the camera that took the image. If it's blurry or out of focus, like this one here, it's going to be a different kind of sharpness we're going to talk about for this session. It's going to be how sharp is our scan, not the image. I mean, if I can't hit focus, then tough luck. That's film. So what I'm looking at is the grains here. Can I see the patterns that is not in, but on the film? Did the scan actually capture the details? And it very much did. We can see this hair very, very sharp. And if we take another image, for example, this one here, where we have like infinity focus and a lot of sharpness happening, we can tell there's a lot of detail being preserved. This is at 100%. And always keep in mind, we are enlarging a very small surface into something very large. So this will never be as sharp as if I shot this directly with my 100mm lens on my Canon EOS R6 or whatever. It will never be this film will never be as sharp. That's just the name of the game. It's a small surface. You want sharper film, you have to go up to a larger format. But right now, we can determine that the sharpness of the scan is very sharp. And for all your nerds out there, well, does megapixel count? It's a huge discussion, because you have to keep in mind how a sensor works. And it's not just a simple answer to say, yes, get more megapixels, because what you really need is enough megapixels to render all the grains. You can't really artificially make higher resolution out of this 35mm. I mean, it's going to be more detailed and sharp. Of course, 12 might be a bit on the low side, but 20 is probably a good spot to be at. Going up to 48, you will get a more pixel per inch when you're on your scanning, but it's still a small thing you're enlarging, so don't worry too much about it. It's probably better to have a very sharp lens in that regard. Yeah, there will always be some kind of loss, and what you really have to determine is if this is sharp enough, if this is good enough for your projects. And to me, this is definitely good enough. If I have an image where I have to do a very large print, I might actually just take this frame here. I know the number, I'm keeping them tagged, and go to a more professional site to do a more high quality scan if I have to. So yeah, camera scans are definitely sharp. If you miss focus, they will be soft. So that's why I'm looking at these grains and the edges of the film, and not worrying about if things are out of focus. I'm more concerned about these kind of details. I'm not sure how much you're going to pick up on YouTube, but this is what I'm looking at. This was what we were focusing on when we were applying our focus in the camera. So next thing is color. And of course, there's going to be some color science that's going to play in, but at the end of the day, this is a raw photo. So colors doesn't really mean anything. The camera doesn't quite know what color is. It's using a Bayer pattern, and then that is being translated using our raw editor here. So you will actually have different colors if you're using something else than Lightroom. This also gives us the freedom to tell that this is not blue. We can make this into basically anything. So if you go into our color mixer and we pull this blue color, we still have the possibility to change these kind of things. I probably won't, because I do believe that this software for conversion is pretty damn good at getting it right. But we are scanning our own film, and there will be situations where it doesn't quite know what to do. For example, this one. I have been correcting this because in the original, on the auto neutral, this tree gets very magenta because there's so much green in this area here that its auto white balancing is getting thrown off, because oh, I have to count all this green, so I'm gonna push the magenta, but we can just slide the green a bit over here and then increase maybe a bit of the warmth, and then we can find a nice spot. I like it better than I had before. And we have this option, and we have to do this process still. That is part of scanning our own film. You have to do this. Same thing goes for shots with a lot of blue. This is not the original white balance given by Negative Lab Pro. This is was more like auto neutral, very warm, because there's so much blue in this shot. So you still have to go through your images and make these changes. That's part of the process. Same thing goes for all these kind of small mistakes on your scan. Maybe there was a hair, maybe there was a hole in the film, who knows, a bit of dust. And you can even go into this visualize spots session here to help you visualize where they are. So that's a great tool. All right, so what is the conclusion? Well, scanning your own film doesn't come cheap. In my case, I already had the camera and the lens. So the VALOI Easy35 was less of an investment compared to a flatbed scanner. And you could also achieve similar results using more traditional scanning methods with your camera with a tripod and focusing down on a light plate, but it all seemed very cumbersome and time consuming. So what you get from this product is ease of use without compromising on quality. I say that with a bit of hesitation because the product does fall short in one area compared to the other methods. Because in order to be able to pull it through, the film can't be 100% locked in like you do in a flatbed scan. Like I said in the beginning, I cannot tell you what is the best option for you, but I hope that you are now able to make a more informed decision. And yeah, please leave a comment, like, subscribe if you found this helpful. I know it's been a minute since my last video, but I do hope that I can return to this and do more tutorials, guides, and especially here on film and also digital cameras. So thank you, take care, and go take some pictures.